Hi friends, Dr. Flavio here. Today I'm reaching out to all of you out there who are on the verge of giving up. And if you are in that space, I think you know exactly what I mean. I have been there myself. You know, there are things that happen in our lives that hurt so much, and we try to patch it up, we try to pretend it's not bothering us, and we keep on going, but eventually our will to keep on going kind of breaks down a little bit. And I remember, having very difficult situations in the past and wondering if it just wouldn't be easier to sort of die magically somehow and maybe start over in the next life or something like that. In other words, it hurts a lot, and we sometimes don't know what to do. We sometimes don't know how to proceed. We don't know how to get out of a situation that seems to never get any better. We seem to never be getting a break. So typically what happens is that something will happen that we don't like, that hurts us, that damages us in some way, and we kind of get going. We tell ourselves that that's not a problem, we're strong, we have many resources, we're very positive, and we basically learn to live with things that basically don't go with us, that we basically don't agree with, we basically don't like, are not good for us, but we kind of adapt and we keep on going. But, we feel a little affected by that event. For some people, it's a divorce. For some people, it's a bankruptcy. For some people, it's a major accident, or a son or a daughter may have unfortunately died, and I have not been in all of those situations before, but I have been in a situation where we just don't think there's a way out anymore. And I'm not talking about like suicidality. I'm not talking about that subject. What I'm talking about is when we basically give up and we just feel down. We just fell one too many times, and we don't seem to be getting up. So what I'm talking about here is when we continue to be somewhat functional. In other words, we go through the motions of life, but inside, and I mean this in a very metaphorical way that I think you can understand, but inside of us, it is as if something has died. Okay, and that's what I'm talking about. Now, when I was there, and when I have worked with people in that situation, I don't recall any of them, and I wasn't thinking that myself, I should just end my life. I don't think that's the same type of thing. That also exists, but that's not what I'm talking about. The people I'm talking about, perhaps you, we want to live. We just don't know how to get out of a situation that does not seem to be improving year after year. And then something else happens, which I think is even more difficult to deal with, which is that, we begin to see the consequences of us having been out of sorts, for a period of time. In other words, there have been some losses there. And now we just don't know how to recover that anymore. In other words, the more difficult it gets, the more difficult it tends to get. I remember in my junior year, I think we moved to Minneapolis, to Minnesota. And here in the United States, that's one of the states up north that is really, really cold in the winter. And it's all about, we learn about skiing and walking on snow and ice. You learn about survival in the cold, essentially. And I remember in science class in high school, we learned about hypothermia. And the idea is that the human body can produce heat, right? We produce heat. So when you put a jacket on, the jacket doesn't make any heat, but the jacket keeps the heat that you produce in your body. So when you go out in the cold, you have a jacket on, your body is producing heat, the jacket is basically keeping the heat in because your body is producing heat. Now, if you are out in the cold and you get wet and it's been many hours, you haven't eaten, you haven't slept, you don't have any water, eventually your body's ability to produce heat shuts down, and now you can no longer warm yourself up. And we call this hypothermia. And when it reaches a certain level, when your body core temperature drops to a certain degree, well, your body will not recover unless you're heated up from the outside, unless somebody rescues you and actually gives you heat, warms you up. That person won't make it. Hypothermia. And that image, we study in health class, in Minnesota, we study all about that. And I was out in the woods many times and got really cold and was scared that maybe I was hypothermic, So you deal with that when you live in Minnesota. And that image never left my mind. And I often think about this in our work here at the office. Sometimes a person is in a negative situation, but you know that they will get out, they will pull out of this situation. But in other cases, and I compare this to hypothermia, in other cases, the situation has become so difficult that on their own, they're not going to pull out. I mean, things have become so difficult that the apparatus that causes them to pull out of a bad situation has given up. So they're still existing, but the part of them that produces, that lifts them up, has kind of given up. So at that point, if the person doesn't have close support from people who do this all day long, they tend to drop down into a level of existence that is just not very good. And then what happens, for some reason, the body begins to break down and everything begins to happen, and they're on a downward spiral. What I'd like to share with you today, if you identify with any of this, is some of the things that we can do right now together for you to pull out of the situation, or at least begin to turn the corner. So let's talk about 3 different things that I believe, if you would apply them, your life would begin to change immediately. Thank you.